Hello, everybody, and welcome to this introduction and overview session of the Certificate in Python for Finance, the CPF program. Yeah, we've got specializations in asset management, algorithmic trading, and computational finance. My name is Eve. I'm founder and CEO of the Python Quants, as well as the AI Machine. And yeah, today's session is always something exciting for me once we get started with another cohort. We always plan to add new things, new twists, new stories, and new techniques to what we have already in the CPF program. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into the slide deck. I try to keep this today rather concise and targeted, right? That you get really a overview of what to expect. This is not like a teaching session. This is just meant as a little guide through the wealth of information that you find in the CPF program, right? So here's the agenda, quite a few points, but all of them are kind of connected and relatively brief. So let's get started with the CPF program itself. So here you see as a rough overview, a couple of numbers that represent what we have to offer in the CPF program. It's usually a 16-week program. This can be done live, or you can what can be done self-paced, and then maybe you want to study for half a year or maybe a year, depending on the workload and maybe some other commitments, right? We have more than 330 hours of instruction already available on the Quant Platform, 2,500 pages in the form of general PDF documentation, and more is coming basically every month in this context. I'm currently writing yet another book. Speaking of books, more than 500 Jupyter notebooks are available on the Quant platform and quite a few thousand lines of code. So that's quite a bit to study. You're not expected to go through everything over the course of the formal 12-week schedule and a 16-week program. So 12 plus 4 weeks. The 4 weeks at the end are meant to be a practice phase where you can work on test projects before you get to the real final project, which is graded. So here, a bit more of a detailed overview, which doesn't contain like everything. Basically, we have already other things that are not yet listed here, but this is really at the core. On the left-hand side, you see the foundations part. So starting with a bootcamp, if you want to get like a quick run through most important topics in the form of like 9 hours, three times roughly 3 hours. And there are crypto basics, Linux basics, math basics, for example, where you see 45 hours. These are 45 modules. So usually these days we have every module, every session 1 hour long. Natural language processing, here you see, for example, there's quite a bit more available. So there are 9 additional sessions currently available on top of the 3 hours that used to be there, right? So this is, if you like, brand new. As I was saying, we add every cohort new elements, new twists to the whole CPF curriculum, right? Python for databases, Python and Excel, financial data science, right? And also here you see Python for finance basics. So in the foundations part, I would consider Python for finance basics, then on the basic level, right? Another class that is not listed here, but that you will find, for example, on the study plan is the PFF, the Python for Finance Key Skills class. There I try to provide in the form of 12 sessions what I would consider really at the core of when you're using Python for finance, right? And then we have here the applications part, reinforcement learning for finance. That's basically also the title of my new book, which comes out this year. AI in finance based on the book that was published a while back, Python for asset management. Another bootcamp that you find here, Python for algo trading add-ons. There are like additional topics around algorithmic trading with Python. Then we have here the practice part in the form of 8 sessions and Python for algo trading core, right? Then we have financial packages. So these days we have not the need anymore to implement everything from scratch. So when we started using Python for finance, I can say decades ago, so roughly 20 years ago, right? There haven't been, for example, such wonderful packages such as NumPy or Pandas. This is what everybody's using these days. And back in the old days, we needed to implement, let's say, for example, functionality for time series, which is available these days in the form of Pandas, obviously, right? Really powerful package. And there are other financial packages which are not general data science packages, but which are really targeted towards financial topics and problems, right? And this is another class here you see that's not that much, but it builds, of course, on the other classes and yeah, several other modules, right? So that this can be kept rather concise. For those interested in equity derivatives, there's I would say a pretty special class. Probably from a financial point of view, the listed volatility and variance derivatives class is the most specialized one, I would say. And then we have the computational finance classes, the one which is the core class, and the other one which covers the DX analytics package, right? And at the bottom of it, you see like here the Python for Finance basics class. Here you see finance with Python. So that's the twist here. That's the other way around. So this class really teaches core principles, notions, idea, methods, models from finance against the background of Python code, right? So comprehensive set of classes and modules to master Python for finance. That's the basic idea of the CPF program. And as I was saying, a little bit more is to be found also on the platform than what you see here, right? So this is for you to read what previous delegates have been pointing out about the program, right? Just for you as a reference. For those of you who don't know me yet, right? Here a little bit of background. So these are the 6 books that are already published about about Python for finance. So I always tried in the past to be at the forefront, right? When I think back, Python for finance, I started in 2013. It was published as the first edition in 2014, so 10 years back, right? It was pretty general, Python for finance, right? Then later on, derivatives analytics with Python came out, and also listed volatility and variance derivative. Then, of course, the still popular topic of algorithmic trading with Python and AI in finance, right? This is basically the introductory book, right? Financial theory with Python. This is at the core of the fundamental class that I mentioned before, right? That's that one here, Finance with Python. That's based on the book here, Financial Theory with Python. So very basic topics are covered here. It's the smallest book in terms of pages, but I would consider what is covered in there to be pretty important overall for the program, right? So what I was saying before, I'm currently writing, more or less finishing, I hope sometime soon, the reinforcement learning for finance book, right? So here again, we try to be at the forefront of what is current and interesting and exciting in our domain, right? At the intersection of finance plus the wonderful programming language Python. And this is really an interesting topic. And for those of you who haven't seen it in the context for finance, you for sure have heard in the past of other success stories like beating the world champion in the game of Go and quite a few more things that have been accomplished based on reinforcement learning approach in the form generally in yeah, the form of the deep Q learning algorithm, right? There is already a class with 15 modules, which is based on the content here of this book, where we go through dynamic hedging applications, algorithmic trading applications, as well as asset allocation. And there is one more chapter now to come in this context, right? Again, for you as a reference, I'm not going through this. This is just a slide deck so that you can, if you feel the need later on, can get back to and read through the different elements if you feel that way. So Python in finance. I have here provided this time around a summary because At least for me, sometimes it is. If you do this since so long and do it basically on a daily basis, right? Sometimes we forget why Python has become so popular in finance, right? So there are a couple of key reasons why people use Python now so widespread in the financial industry, right? This is data analysis and modeling, right? This is algorithmic trading, financial engineering, which is wonderfully supported by Python, right? For example, for pricing of derivatives, this was my starting point. Like what I was saying 20 years back, I personally went the first steps in Python for finance, and this was my application, right? Pricing derivatives in the form of the Longstaff-Schwartz least squares Monte Carlo algorithm. Back then, I had quite a bit of a struggle, and I needed to invest quite a bit of time. But nevertheless, I was always convinced that Python is the right language. And these days, so many others in the industry are convinced about this as well. Machine learning and AI, right? Of course, this is omnipresent, not only in finance, in other areas as well. And Python simply is a language of choice here for machine learning and AI. It's pretty efficient. This was what brought me into it. And these days, with the packages that I've been mentioning before, like NumPy and Pandas, this has become, I would say, really a unique selling point for the language, not only in finance, as I said before, but in other areas as well. It's simply the industry standard, and we have, of course, a large community and a ton of resources on which we can rely, right? So that's really something that we need to take into account when we think of why it has become so widespread and so popular in the industry, right? Um, there's a question with regard to what we will learn, for example, in asset management, right? So here, when you go through the list, it's not directly mentioned, for example, asset management, but of course, in the asset management industry, this is used as well these days. We cover quite a few topics, for example, the combination of machine learning and asset management models, such as mean variance portfolio theory and the Black-Litterman model, also risk parity. We cannot, in all the single areas, cover everything, right? I will come to that with regard to the principles. But with us in the CPF program, it's technology first. This means Python is leading, of course, throughout against the background of finance, but we cannot and we do not even want to try to be comprehensive in all areas, right? I think for a program like ours, that's quite a bit too much to expect, like from, let's say, from a bachelor's degree to a PhD to doing some research in many diverse fields, subfields in finance. That would be a little bit too much, but we cover already a ton of things. Maybe not every little, maybe even wonderfully interesting topic. So bear with us. You need to go through the resource and have a look for yourself. But we cover a lot in asset management, maybe not everything that might jump to mind for one or the other now following us here in the introduction. So also, of course, when we speak of the industry and that it's in widespread use, right, we need to take into account that Python skills are these days so important for so many different job roles, right? It always starts here with the quantitative side, right? Might not be for those people who have, let's say, client relationship responsibilities in the retail business or in the wealth management business, right? But there are so many roles these days that can be considered quantitative roles, like quant researchers, quant developers, quantitative analysts, as you see here, right? And all these benefit from Python, and it's basically expected that, people that apply for such roles know Python pretty well. Not on the, let's say, orange belt level, but probably rather on a at least brown belt level, right? Data scientists and finance, risk managers, algorithmic traders, financial engineers, portfolio managers. Here we are again in the asset management part here. All these roles, they benefit from Python and are in most instances these days expected. Again, the applicants for such roles are expected to know Python already quite well. fixed income analysts, I mentioned already, quantitative developers, market researchers, and of course, it's not only the people, how shall I say, in the front office, the traders, those who make decisions. It's also those that need to keep the IT infrastructure up and running, right? These are also thousands and thousands of people in the industry. Also, these people, not just for data science, no, also for infrastructure related topics. Python is a wonderful language, right? So it always pays off, I would say, to learn Python, and maybe to, if you have already a bit of background, to level up your Python skills, and maybe at the same time also add a few more financial tools under your sleeve, right, in the toolbox. Here, for example, is the bootcamp that was mentioned before, like the 9 hours, roughly is a little bit less, I think. But this is also available on YouTube, and for those who might not be already enrolled in the program and might watch this video later on, this is, for example, something that you can access for free on our YouTube channel, to which you see here the link, right, to our channel, and then just look for the online bootcamp. These are 3 sessions. Right? So, finance with Python. This now means that we have to look at the first class that I want to dive into. I cannot dive into all these classes. I rather want to go in a bit of detail through 2 different classes. The one is finance with Python, because that is so fundamental, and the structure of that class is representative for most other classes that you find in the CPF program and on the Quant platform. Right? So here you see 3 elements. On the left-hand side, you see the book. Not for every class. You see we have a multitude of classes. There is a book available, but for that one, there is, right? And then you see in the middle part the core resources in the form of videos, right? And here in the form of Jupyter notebooks as well, right? So whenever there is a Jupyter notebook used in a recorded session, you find the resources that are used, like Jupyter notebooks, maybe some code, maybe slide decks, maybe some other resources, right? Let's say, for example, a shell script that jumps to mind. You find them either uploaded here, or at least you find links to the resources used, right? Speaking of Jupyter notebooks, on the right-hand side, here you see one Jupyter notebook, which is here executed on the Quant platform, right? So this is kind of like a typical structure. If there is a book, you find the book on the Quant platform. Then there are, for all the single sessions, of course, recorded videos plus the resources, and maybe some links to additional resources. Then sometimes also outside the Quant platform, right? So that's here the how should we say it, the typical combination of 3 elements. So what I now show you this on the Quant platform. Right here you see the dashboard on the Quant platform, where there are the 3 latest videos, and you see these are the most recent sessions that we had. So I don't know where the number 13 is. It's probably, this was maybe adjusted later, changed later, so that this pops up here 12, but be sure there's also number 13, right? And on top of that, you find here on the dashboard the latest forum posts, right? And you can scroll further down, right? And you see here the overview of the user forum. So the user forum, of course, is a key element of the Quant platform, where you can post all your technical and also program related questions, right? So this is nothing for, let's say, email, or nothing for the Discord server, to which I come in a few minutes, right? But here, that's the place where you can post your questions, and maybe you want to have a look here. Maybe you want to search first, because it's likely that if you face a certain issue, that others have faced the same issue, and it has been already discussed in the user forum, right? And up here, I scrolled over that, there's also a search box, and yet another one here on top, where you can search, for example, basically all the content on the platform. So it's full text search. I come to that in a minute, right? Full text search, meaning also over every single video, right? We have transcribed with the help of the wonderful AIs, plural, right? LLMs that are available. We use the OpenAI API to transcribe the videos, to summarize them, right, and to make them fully searchable. So every single word that has been spoken and recorded, of course, it must have been recorded, otherwise it doesn't work, can be searched here in the search bar. But I want to highlight here the classes. So here, the class Finance with Python has the book Financial Theory with Python, right? Then we have here the classes, the relatively long list, which is also growing, right? And you can then scroll down. This is not always, as you can see here, in alphabetical order, right? But I thought this would be good order. Here is the Finance with Python, but of course the list goes on and on. With regard to the other classes, most of them you have seen in the overview, right, with the different blocks under foundations and applications, right? So here in Finance with Python, you see the recorded videos here, right? Finance with Python 1, 2, 3, and a total of 6 are there, right? And you see when I hover over the videos, right, there is for every video a tooltip available. So this is called a tooltip, right? That's a shorter one. So this session on Finance with Python explores pricing, contingent claims, and incomplete markets, and it goes on and on. And you see here a detailed summary, I would say. It's not like the very short summary that you usually for or text describing the session here. This is the 4th session in the blah blah. That's really general, but these days we have the luxury that this can be generated efficiently based on the transcriptions. And so when you wonder what is with regard to video number 5 in this class, right? Video Finance with Python, expected utility maximization, incomplete markets, provides an introduction. Okay, you should have a good idea of what to expect in that video, right? So when I, for example, start that video, that particular one, it was just like arbitrarily chosen, right? It will then run, and I hear myself speaking, so I don't need that, right? You can of course jump forward, backward, right? Can repeat whatever you want to repeat or feel necessary, right? To have another look. You also will see here on the upper left-hand side that you can open notes. You can add notes here that are saved for your personal account, right? You can make your personal notes. So here my personal note, and I can save it, or I add a timestamp, right? We are here, where are we? 58:18, right? I can add a timestamp and add a note. And so you can later on, for example, yeah, go through your notes. You can also delete them, right? You can basically, as you would maybe do with a, let's say, PDF, which you can mark, right? Where you can add annotations or whatnot. You can insert your notes. And was saying we have full text search. You can also search, or it's automatically done. You don't need to specify anything when you do full text search in the respective boxes that I've shown before. It will search over your notes as well. So you can set markers or whatever, right? So this is really, I think, a helpful element here when you go through the videos and later on you want to revisit it, or you want to look something up or whatever it might be, right? We all know what we make our notes, and these are not mental notes. These are saved notes in a database that you can then search later. Right, so these are the videos that I was talking of, and for the Finance with Python class, you've seen there's the book. Here we have the video, right, and you have also down here the notebooks that I use. Sometimes it's just one notebook, sometimes there are multiple notebooks or additional Python files, right? I have clicked on one, and the that was like maybe I was logged in before, right? So it refused to connect to the worker, right? In this context. So this might also be a Docker issue. We will check that for sure afterwards, right? So everything is there: summaries, full text search, code, videos, books, etc. And the structure, again, sometimes a book, not always. Then you have the videos, then you have slide decks in general, you have the Jupyter notebooks and additional files. All is provided here on the Quant platform, right? Just a little second here, right? Yeah, that's the Finance with Python class. You see, that's a short one, but I repeat myself here. I cannot emphasize it enough. That's really a core one. So in the email, I mentioned that, so for the first week, that not every single detail might be, yeah, of the highest importance. So sometimes I notice people, based on the questions they post in the user forum or in other places, right, that they easily get stuck in the beginning. So I was saying that not every detail must be understood in the first try, in the first run. But this class is something where I would say it pays off when you spend a little bit more time until you get a good grasp of what is behind. You see, this is really just like 6 modules. That's not that much, but very important for everything else to follow, right? In this context. The other classes, like I think the longest one is Mathematics Basics with 45 hours, right? But this is the exception, right? That's the exception. So in the overview here, I want to briefly jump back. AI in finance as a second example. Again, that's already the last example. I thought 2 examples to just illustrate what the classes are about and where to find it. AI in finance basically consists of multiple classes, right? You see here a total of 48 modules. Here, almost half of them for reinforcement learning for finance, and 24. This is separated in 2 classes. AI in finance, so general AI and not specifically reinforcement learning. The one class, for example, 12 sessions, is based on my book AI in Finance, right? Here we have again this kind of combination of 3 different types of resources, where we have the book, the text, where we have the videos, where we have the Jupyter notebooks linked to other resources, right? And we have here the code that can be executed usually out of box. And when I say usually, you can imagine that if you have some 500 notebooks, that is not that simple to keep a Python environment up and running, which allows you to execute all the single notebooks flawlessly, right? Uh, this is, I would say, not only difficult, it's almost impossible, if not impossible, right? Because you have, given that there are different topics covered, different packages used, also specialized packages, etc. And all these different packages, specialized packages, they have their own dependencies. Yeah, it makes it difficult. This is the curse, I would say, of Python. Being an open source ecosystem and yeah, giving a lot of freedom to the open source developers, right? But on the other hand, yeah, as I was saying, it's not that simple to keep everything consistent. And yeah, as I was saying, running out of the box. We try our best, we try hard. We just did it over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Once again, this is an ongoing process. So maybe expect here and there that there might be an issue. Sometimes just a warning. That's not too bad, I would say. We usually can live with warnings, but once errors are raised, once exceptions are raised, that's a point, for example, that you please then post in the user forum where you experience exactly which issue with the code on the Quant platform, right? So the Quant platform itself, I've said so much and I've shown you already quite a bit on the Quant platform. Here you have a summary. So this allows me to speak in a bit more of a structured way and not like clicking a ton of times in between. Now the Quant Platform, that's you read it here in the subtitle, in the subline, your central content, code execution, and support platform. So all the content is there. Code can be executed with, yeah, the problems that might be arising here and there that I was mentioning before, plus the support that you can get. So even if, again, you face issues, please post them simply in the user form. We try our best to resolve the issues, to explain, or to maybe update, for example, something on the Quant platform. You see here, like the latest videos, before you've seen it live. Here, the latest videos in that screenshot have been by Algo Practice. Then you see the navigation, books, classes, the practice part, user forum, chat. We have our own CPF and Python for Finance chatbot like ChatGPT, which is trained, and this is then called fine-tuned on the content of our Quant platform, as you can interact with that chatbot specifically with regards to what is found in the CPF program, right? For example, ChatGPT probably doesn't know everything that we cover in the CPF program, because these are resources that are not publicly available. But we can, of course, fine-tune chatbot in this regard, right? Wonderful technology that really helps a lot. Here, the tooltip from before, the summary, and the rest that you have seen already before. Right here, a book page, for example, displayed. So that's all on the Quant platform, right? Then you have here another example for the full text search, right? So I was searching here specifically for TPQA, which is a little Python package that we use in algorithm trading that we have developed ourselves, right? And it shows, for example, 4 search results for TPQA in your videos. This means that 4 videos cover TPQA. And you see here, this is these days so detailed that you get exact timestamps where the word TPQA is used. And this is just with regard to the videos. There might be other resources where TPQA is mentioned as well. Here I'm just showing 2 videos out of the 4 that the Quant platform search engine has discovered based on the search. Very simple one. I just typed in TPQA. Again, exact timestamps, and you say, well, module name, I should be able to pip install. Pip install this is exactly what I was looking for, right? So we might jump here exactly to the timestamp where this topic is covered that you're looking for, right? Then we have here the full text search with regard to something that is to be found a bit more often. So there are, I don't know how many hits you will get when you search for pandas, right? This is just alone in the mathematics basics 33 video. You see there, obviously pandas is at the core, and it starts at the first minute, and 10 seconds later, another 15 seconds later, and so forth. You see here the topic, the core topic is pandas, and of course you might want to specify further what you're interested in, right? So this might be a little bit too general, but of course I'm here presenting an example where we have a ton of hits, and you can imagine that pandas, or for example NumPy, would give almost an equal number of hits on the Quant platform. But everything is presented here in a structured way, plus the exact timestamps in the videos themselves. So then I was mentioning before, we have the quote unquote ChatGPT for Python for Finance and the CPF program. So I can, and this is what I want to highlight here, this is something that ChatGPT in its base form cannot do. I asked for here specific modules that focus on the usage of pandas. You recall the example from before. Here I formulated it a bit differently, which modules here focus on the usage of pandas for financial data science. And then it says here the following modules focus on the usage of pandas for financial data science. PFF that's the bootcamp, right? PFF Basics 01, PFF Key Skills 12 and 09. So here it is not in the way presented as before, where you have exact timestamps, you can jump to it. Here it summarizes, right, what pandas is used for or talked about or introduced for, right, in the context of this module, PFF Key Skills 09. And it goes on and on, right? Here the three dots just as usual indicate that there have been many more hits, right? Here 50 math basics, whatever, right? You see, I think you get the idea. And here it summarizes, as it so nicely does all the time, these modules provide insights into how pandas is used for managing, analyzing, visualizing, and manipulating financial time series data, right? So that's basically here the PFF and CPF chatbot, as we call it, right? So feel free here to use it as intensively as you like. And maybe even before you post something in the user forum, I think these days it is really efficient to first go to maybe the full text search. Maybe first I would probably go first to the chatbot and ask my question in this context first, and get here then either direct answers or hints to where I can find additional information. So speaking of direct answers, that's here another slide related to the Quant Platform and the chatbot in particular. So provide concise, self-contained Python code that simulates a stock price path using geometric Brownian motion. We all know this, right? We can, in many instances, delegate the work, like simulating Brownian motion, here to chatbot, and it provides code here. I wouldn't say that this is in all the instances where you might face maybe a little issue. The best way to go about it, struggle and figuring things out on your own, I would say, is one of the best learning experiences that you can make, right? At least when you get it solved, when you get it done afterwards. So if you, of course, spend too much time, or where you say, well, maybe I'm missing here something or whatnot, then of course you can go that way. But this is like having someone else doing the push-ups for you, right? You need to do the push-ups by yourself in order to build muscle, right? You need to play the piano if you want to learn how to play the piano. You need to go to the pool if you want to learn how to swim. And this is the same with coding, right? That's a skill, and you should do it on your own. But of course, we all know this. This is not a secret that I reveal here. The LLMs these days are pretty powerful and efficient in generating code such as the one presented here for the simulation of a geometric Brownian motion. Right? You can also, I mentioned this, I mentioned before, when you get stuck with something and maybe you're writing your own code, you can also, as you might probably know, you can also post code to the chatbot and ask the chatbot where the issue lies. So they can then analyze your code and might hint you towards maybe one issues, maybe multiple issues, right, that it sees in the code. So this is, I would say, a pretty good intermediate step once you get stuck. But again, I hope you won't go all the time immediately to hear the solution that it might present the chatbot to you, right? Rather try it on your own. Again, if you want to learn to play the piano, you need to sit down and play the piano by yourself, right? And not watch somebody else playing the piano in a wonderful fashion. So with regard to the study plans, we have basically two study plans. One is the major one for the live cohort, right? You see here the link to it. This is a link that you have seen and received by email already multiple times. So this time around, I have changed, I would say, in a half fundamental way, the study plan for the first time since quite a while. I have replaced the financial data science class here by PFF Key Skills and Linux based. So I decided that this is probably time better spent. In the beginning, of course, you have the financial data science class, which is based on the Python for Finance book, still available. But the key skills is really what I recommend that you go through also thoroughly, like I was saying with regard to Finance with Python. Right, here are the core classes, and there Linux Basics is added to the mix tools and skills I also consider important, even if you might not get everything, let's say, correct with regard to Python environments in the beginning or maybe Docker usage. I recommend also that you go through these because this is important, and this is also something that you might not fully grasp at a first run if you haven't had any experience with it. But if you see it multiple times and over again, this becomes like second nature. And in the past, I've received, and this is when I'm pretty happy, received emails from people that said, well, in the beginning, I didn't know anything, let's say, about Docker. But now that I have worked with it multiple times and regularly over the course of the program, I feel really confident in the usage of these wonderful technologies. So this is what you should be striving for as well. But don't expect everything to come overnight, right? After having watched maybe one video, it requires, as I was saying before, a bit of practice in order to get through all these wonderful techniques and technologies that we have around these days. Then AI in finance, I focus here indeed on the book-based class because I think at least one of the classes that are on the Quant platform should be part of the core curriculum, right? Because AI and finance is used here in the asset management context, is used for algorithmic trading, and in the few of the other classes, right? So therefore, one class, and that's the one I think that you should go through in detail that I list here, for which you also have a book, right? I think that's also an additional advantage, right? Then optional here, I'm just listing math basics, PFF basics, crypto basics, RL for finance. There are more classes. I used to list here things like Python for Excel, Python for databases, etc. I think you know best for yourself if you want to go through, let's say, Python and Excel. For some people, that's not a topic. Others might be required to use Excel at work and might want to integrate Python with Excel. Wonderful. You know this best. You find the resources on the Quant platform. But these are, I would say, general classes that might benefit basically everybody, right? You don't need to focus from the beginning on reinforcement learning for finance, but I think this is a very exciting and interesting topic. Therefore, I could imagine that many of you are interested in that, or crypto basics for some, right? So this is optional. If you don't find time, you can skip what is listed here under optional. I mean, you have seen before math basics like 45 sessions or whatnot, PFF. Or I just saw before there is even maybe there's a bit more, and I underestimated or undervalued the whole content of that class, right? PFF basics also 35 hours. Therefore, it's optional, and it's optional over the course of the whole 12-week program, right? And then here you see weekly updated live sessions. I decided this time around to start easy with today's introductory session with a Q&A at the end of the week, because in recent times, as I was saying, people, almost after 2 weeks felt already behind because they tried to cover everything. So in that sense, I tried to streamline here our curriculum, our study plan, plus getting started a bit more slowly until you find your way around the Quant platform and everything else that is important in this context. So here the 1-year self-pay study plan. This is just a suggestion. You can use plug and play. You can go through the study plan and pick and choose, right? You can go back to the overview and say, well, this looks good, that looks good, and let me do it that way. But there are a couple of things that I think are important, and that's really here the Finance with Python classes, the tools and skills part here, and AI. So this is something that you should focus on in the beginning. Then you can basically decide where to go deeper. Maybe you say, yeah, asset management might sound interesting, but for me, it's important to get started, let's say, with algorithmic trading. Not a big deal. You can replace this in your own study plan. You have all the options here to come up with what fits your requirements and also maybe your schedule, the free time that you can make available for the CPF program best. So guiding principles, I hope by now most of them should be already clear. I mentioned the Python first part. Um, it's not a finance program where we use, among others, a bit of Python here and there, right? It is really Python first. So coding and implementation are the focus rather than theory or practical consideration. So all the classes are really practical. All is about coding and implementation. It's not that we get started, I don't know, with 10 sessions covering theory here and there. It's always practical, right? Then we have the specific element here in the sense of that what is implemented is usually implemented in a pretty specific way based on pretty specific example, right? We don't even try to provide an exhaustive overview of different techniques or implementation options that we might have. And trust me, you usually have a lot of them in Python. There's usually not a single way of doing things. There are in general multiple ways, sometimes too many to really decide upon how to go about it. But that I would say is a luxury problem. Then reproducibility. So all examples are based on static data sets to allow for reproducibility of the results. Yeah, we have paid here in the past where we were basing classes on publicly available data sources like open data, right? Think Yahoo Finance, for example, and then they stopped providing API support and they changed the API, the code broke. So these days we try whenever we can, whenever this makes sense, and this is basically throughout, apart from very specific examples, let's say in algorithmic trading, where we access an API of our broker, for example, right? But in all the other cases, whenever possible, we rely on static examples so that you don't have any issue with reproducing the results because some API is not available anymore and the code cannot be executed in the later parts once you are not able to retrieve the data in the earlier parts. Right? The fourth point or guiding principle is that everything is practical. To acquire coding and other practical skills is the main goal. Skill acquisition is indispensable. So here I like to quote or show the book Peak Secrets from the New Science of Expertise, which analyzes what is called deliberate practice, which brings people basically no matter the area, the field, the domain they are active in to expert level, right? Maybe we don't want to strive to become world champions in Python coding, whatever this might mean. I'm not aware of any world championships, but I think you get the point. But still, we need to practice, and this is indispensable. You want to learn to swim, you need to jump in the pool and get started swimming. Nobody else can do this trick for you. We have, speaking of doing tricks these days, I would say a lot, if not a ton of quizzes and exercises that help you on your learning journey, right? So we have, and I like them to get started with, we have yes, no questions, for example. So it's the primary distinction between a list and tuple that the former is immutable, can be changed after creation, while the latter is immutable. So when you see something like this, you could say yes or no, or you go a little bit deeper. I think, yeah, what is mutable? What is the definition of mutable? What is the definition of immutable? What are the characteristics of list? What are the characteristics of tuples, etc. Right. So this is really meant, to provide you a thorough review and to revisit important aspects of such fundamental things like data structures, base data structures, right? Or here, this context, also multiple choice questions about something a bit more advanced. Here, NumPy data structures and the array objects and the universal function, right? Typical setup here for answering options. Well, what is NumPy primarily used for? Web development? Probably not, right? Game development, here and there. Numerical computing, that sounds good. Text processing, not primarily, right? I would say in all of these areas, we can use NumPy to some extent, but primarily, I would say here it's numerical computing. So you can now maybe go again for yourself through potential applications of NumPy in web development context or in the game development part, right? This is really what this is meant to be, additional input, food for thought, for you to see, yeah, have you understood important concepts, and yeah, to think through the different aspects that are covered here in the different questions. So usually they are structured around one topic, right? We have not multiple choice questions, not in general about 12 diverse topics. Here it's about NumPy and the array objects, right? And yes, no questions are about data structure. So that you get exposure to multiple questions about a single topic. Then we have exercises, which are a bit more involved because they would require you in general to come up with some code. So exercise 1, use nested for loops to print a pyramid pattern. And think about the relation between rows and spaces, stars, right? And so forth and so forth. So these are really meant as, yeah, a bit more challenging exercises. They are, of course, not, as you can read here, this is not that you end up with 500 lines of Python code, usually also not 100 lines of Python code, but yeah, which give you more exposure to implementing, in general, important algorithms, right? So, user form, no matter with regard to which topic, problem, issue you get stuck, think of the user forum, right? You see here different topics, right? If it's algorithmic trading, that's I think still the yeah, most active part here in the user forum. Finance with Python, right? Certificate program in general, right? Discussions around the certificate program. I said, well, where can I find X, Y, that? How can I go about this? What would you recommend in terms of X, Y, that? That's, for example, a part here where you can post it. Or you say, well, on the Quant Platform, I have faced the following issues. Can you please help? Right? I think this should be self-explanatory, but, and this is a big, big but, please, 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 whenever you post something related to content, where content is code, right, please post the complete example which reproduces the problem, the error that you face, right? That's something very important. And when you start a new thread, yeah, you're supposed to click that you have read, quote unquote, the rules for posting something code related, in the sense of a complete, minimal, but verifiable example in this context, right? So that's really important. Otherwise, we cannot help. And usually I would simply say, please follow the rules, right? And this is probably not helpful for you, because if I wouldn't need to write this again out explicitly, I probably could have provided, or anybody else could have provided already the answer, right? So this might lead then to a bit of a delay in that context. Discord server, if you like, is for everything else, right? You can chat here with fellow delegates about the certificate program live, of course. Everything else, user form, etc., is asynchronous. You post something, somebody comes back. On the Discord server, you can, of course, have live discussions. We will have our first one at the end of the week in the form of a Q&A. I hope you will bring all the questions that have piled up over the course of the week, so that we can answer them before we go into the weekend, where some of you might want to study, maybe with a focus because you don't have work commitment or whatever, right? And yeah, there are different areas like about coding, finance, hardware, about final projects, career, and a bit more, right? So just feel free to explore, to maybe go through the history and to see what has been discussed in the past. You can also, as you know, search here on the Discord server. If you haven't done so, you need to register for Discord. I usually recommend that you download the desktop app. I find this a bit more convenient than the web-based version, so the browser-based version. But of course, if you don't want to install something additionally, you can also go with a browser-based version, right? So define the project, and usually I'm a little bit reluctant to speak early on about the final project, but I'm doing it here because I know many of you have been asking me before already, or yeah, are worried maybe what is this final project all about. First things first. So you don't need to worry at all at this point in time about what to write about in the final project, how this might look like, etc. Just postpone it. I want to address it here briefly. You get also the link to the final project requirements. These are 3 pages, right? They are every once in a while updated, right? You see here with regard to the topic, the deliverables, needs to be hosted, the approach overall, the formatting requirements, then potential revisions, and how the grading works in the end, right? Once it is done and once it is accepted, what might influence the grading of the project. So you see it all here. You can go to the document. Here's the link. There are more links, right? That you can follow along. But please don't worry at this point about the final project. Time will come when this becomes yeah, the topic of the hour, right? And then you should revisit it. I'm pretty sure when you now go at the beginning of the cohort, when you go through this, you say, oh, this sounds, I don't know, this sounds a bit involved. I'm not really sure about this. Trust me, once you get thoroughly through the resources as outlined in the study plan with us, maybe in the live cohort or in a self-paced fashion, in the end, you will be pretty sure what exactly here is required and how to go about it, what topic to choose, because you will have for sure your favorite topic on which to focus, right? So here you have it, but I would say please forget it until we come to the point where yeah, we talk final project. This point we talk classes and skill acquisition. So just the brochure if somebody is interested in a even more concise overview, right? Here, that's the brochure, and you find the link behind usually the screenshots. You find the links. Yeah, almost on time, basically, in any case, in time. We have reached the end of the introduction and overview session, right? I hope this gives you a good starting point. I hope you are as excited as I am to get started with the May 2024 cohort. I'm looking forward to yeah, a couple of exciting weeks that lie ahead of us. I'm looking forward to adding even more beneficial resources to the CPF program when we go through the live session, right? I wish you, in any case, all the fun in the world, happy Python coding, and successful skill acquisition. I see you in the next session. Take care. Bye bye.